What do you think makes a meaningful career?
What is the difference? Why you prefer coaching over mentoring? How do we distinguish ourselves from the pack? If you're not at the table, you're on the menu. You know?
And oftentimes our hands have to get dirty. What could be the best outcome for this situation? I'm Michael.
I'm Regine.
And this is Gears in Motion. Good afternoon, everyone. We are back again with another Gears in Motion. I am Michael, and of course, I have my lovely, the talented, the flawless co-host, Miss Regine Boboff. Welcome, everyone, again to Gears in Motion. Regine, would you like to say anything?
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. Michael, thank you. I almost went looking for your co-host, but I'll take it. But I'll take it. Both Michael and I are really proud and excited this evening to introduce to you Dr. Nadine Michel, who will speak to us about the impact on mental health of all of what we've discussed in the past, in the sense of not having enough women of color, minorities in the STEM discipline, and how that can affect our mental health and what we can do to help alleviate some of those so that we can establish a sustainable presence in the field. So having said that, our first question for you, Dr. Michel, first of all, thank you so much for spending this time with us. We really do appreciate it. And the first question we have is really, can you tell us about your background and explain to us more about your area of specialization?
Sure. Well, first, I'll start by saying thank you so much for having me. It's my pleasure to be here chatting with both of you. So I guess a little bit about my background. My parents are both immigrants from Haiti. They came to the United States in their late to mid-20s and essentially went to college. But when the time came, their student visas expired, they realized that they wouldn't be able to go back to Haiti and really make a living for themselves because of all the political instability. So they ended up emigrating to Canada, and I was actually born there. My dad is a church planner. So he plants churches. We kind of live there for 10 years, and then he'll move somewhere else, and then we kind of start over. And my mom is a teacher. She teaches ESL, so she works with a lot of students that are from various different countries and that are kind of trying to acclimate to the United States and go through the educational system. So the reason why I started that way is because growing up, a lot of my early experiences were with Haitian immigrants and with mental health. And so specifically, my dad being a pastor of Haitian churches, he was kind of, and still is kind of the person that gets called in emergencies. If there's behavioral emergencies, if there's something going on in the community, he gets called first. And he also worked as a social worker as well. So I used to just ride along when there were things going on to do the home visits. And if there was, a mental health crisis, my dad would be there with the family. So I saw that at a young age, and that really got me interested in mental health. And then from there, I essentially throughout high school had an idea that I was interested in mental health, didn't really know what, kind of career I wanted. And then when I went to college, I ended up getting interested in neuroscience. And during my second year, actually the second half of the first year, there was an earthquake that happened in Haiti, the first one. And I got interested in volunteering to go be in Haiti for a few months to work with survivors of the earthquake. So I volunteered to do that, got into the program, and interestingly, that got me interested in research, because when I was working with all of the different people in the community, I became really fascinated by how resilient people were. And it made me really think about, why is it that some people are resilient when they deal with a traumatic event and others are more susceptible to developing post-traumatic stress disorder and depression and all of these things. So I ended up going into research while I was in college. And kind of from there, I feel like the path I went on kind of all, went on its own to go on a life of its own. I got more interested in research, but was also interested in psychiatry. So I ended up having a mentor that was an MD PhD who was a psychiatrist. And I was like, oh, I didn't know this was an option. I didn't know this was a path for me. And from there, just started, going through, doing more research, ended up applying to MD PhD programs. So to make a long story short, essentially, I'm an MD PhD. So I've gone to medical school, but my PhD is in neuroscience. So my PhD was looking at early brain development and looking at how stress can impact brain development. And now I'm in residency in a psychiatry residency program. So that essentially means that I'm furthering my training, seeing patients in the hospital, and then also working on research at the same time.
Congratulations. That is incredible. You have achieved quite a bit. And I'm sure to some extent, just like Regine and what we saw in episode 1 for her, following her dad around really influenced kind of her career path and her career trajectory. But yeah, you've accomplished quite a bit. And it's really cool to see another person that had a story that really is being brought into fruition now. Can you tell us a little bit about why it's important that someone like you is someone that looks like you is in this space? I know that's a good part of your story as well, and I'd love to be able to flesh some of that out.
Yeah, I think that one big thing is, thinking about patients, but also thinking about other people that could potentially have careers in STEM. Seeing someone that looks like you in a field, or just in a job or in a position that you couldn't have imagined, makes you realize that you could also be there as well. I think, for me growing up, even though I had all these experiences, it wasn't until college that I had heard about a PhD in neuroscience. I didn't know that was a possibility at all. And I had never met any Black scientists before, ever. So when I, ended up with a mentor that was, a physician scientist, I was like, what? My mind was blown. I didn't know it was possible. And that just seeing that person and interacting with them just made such a huge difference in what I believed was possible. So I think one is there's just so much potential that you open up to other people simply by existing and being in that space. I think the other thing too is that there are questions that only you are kind of, created to answer, because you have the unique background, the skills, the life experiences that mean that the way that you approach research and the way that you think about educating other people is going to be unique, and it's going to form its own special place in the world. I think that there are so many people. It feels like a burden, and we can kind of talk about that aspect of it too, right? That there's this increased stress that comes with, I feel like I'm representing a whole, race or a whole ethnic group. And, there's that component of it as well. But the flip side, like I said, is that you just bring a unique perspective on everything that you do. And especially in STEM, where there's not a lot of us, the technology that's being developed, it needs to account for a diverse population of people. So by being in that field, it's just so important to how technology moves forward and who is involved in what happens next.
Yeah, that's so important. Wow. I think it's really cool too that, you saw, this is your story as well. You saw someone doing something that you did not even believe was possible. And then to be able to be personally invested and mentored by someone that looks like you, that's That's a real opportunity. I think what's interesting too is particularly when students, particularly when people of color, are coming from immigrant backgrounds, many Black and brown faces, they know that they have to grind. They know that they have to hustle. They know that they have to up the ante to get to where they're going, even if they don't exactly know where that is. They know that they have to put in an exerted effort, a concentrated effort to make a better life, not just for themselves, but for their family members and of course their future. How do you advise students? How do you advise young professionals to grind in a healthy way, if that's possible, or even to work in a way such that they are putting in effort, which I think many of them know is going to require a lot of them mentally, physically, emotionally, but also is going to require a lot of them in terms of just what they're up against. How do you advise, or how do you counsel folks in that space, in that area?
Yeah, I think there's definitely this extra like chip on your shoulder when you come from an immigrant family, because there's the mindset of my parents or my grandparents or whoever came before me did so much to get here. So they're passing the ball on to me and I don't want to drop it. And so I think that definitely gave me motivation throughout my training. Even as I, was in high school, I was thinking, well, I need to, I need to do well. I can't be out here messing up. It's not a good look. But it's actually my parents that reminded me, like, the fact that you're here and that you're just doing the best that you can. We're not asking for you to, I don't know, do something insane. Like, we just want you to be happy and we want you to just reach your potential, do what you feel, passionate about. That's what they cared about. And I think that mindset is very important, because when you're remembering that you're doing things out of purpose and out of passion, I think that helps you during the seasons where you can feel burnt out or you feel like this is too much, this burden is too much. Remember the reason why you're doing it, right? It might be a certain thing that you experienced in your childhood and you're saying, well, I don't want anyone to go through what I went through. I want to fix the system in this way, or I want to create this opportunity for somebody else. That's always what drives me during times where it becomes hard, or I'm like, oh, I can't do this. This is too hard. The other thing that I will say as well, though, is that unfortunately, in STEM, there are a lot of systemic barriers that make it significantly difficult for people of color and from people from lower socioeconomic status to really advance in the field. That is a huge problem. And that is still something that monumental that I talk to when I have trainees or when I have people asking me about advice. I bring that up all the time, because there's a level of resilience that you have to develop so that you can make it like to this far. Unfortunately, for research, for academia, you're not really getting paid, and you're not getting paid for a very long time. And if you're from a family that does not have generational wealth, if you're the first generation to be in this stage, it can be very difficult for you if you are in a position where you're, sending financial aid to your family, or you feel the pressure of, I at this age, I should be making more money. I should be contributing to my family. There's just a lot of stressors that might not be present from people that don't have that background or that don't have that experience. And that's something that I still struggle with now. Even with all the training I've done, I'm still like, still trying to survive out here. So it's funny. I think everyone's like, oh, you're a doctor now. I'm like, I don't feel like I've made it yet. We still have some ways to go. But what I always encourage people to do is, despite all of those stressors, to one, find ways to take care of yourself, do the things that you love to do, right? If you enjoy music, go to concerts, even if you have to finesse to find a free concert, or finding ways to even make some money out of something that you actually love, which is something I started doing in grad school. I love singing, I love performing. So I started doing shows and earning money on the side, and I turned that into something that was fun and profitable. So I think there's a lot of unique ways and, tools of resiliency that you can develop in your training so that it doesn't end up being, a burdensome experience. It doesn't end up being difficult. But like I said, all things considered, there are still there's still significant barriers that I think all of us who have made it to this stage in STEM, we're looking back and we're thinking, how do we make it better for the next generation of people coming up so that they don't have to go through what we went through to get here.
Thank you. This is excellent, actually. And sometimes when we look back, we ask ourselves, how did we even make it thus far, right? So,
Yeah.
and thank you for even touching upon really what I want to talk about. Also, is my next question is, it's been documented that we have many Black and brown people and women who are leaving engineering, the engineering profession, and this and other field, but especially the engineering profession, within the first 10 years of practice. And many blame the mostly homogeneous, demographics in the industry, especially at the leadership level. They blame a lack of belongingness and not feeling valued, right? So how do we condition ourselves mentally to make it through the 10-year mark and beyond? How do we accomplish that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think one thing that you really need to make it is to find mentorship. And sometimes that can be directly where you are, to find one or two people that are a step or two ahead of you that can advise you as you're making decisions, as you're going through your career. That can also be people from a distance. I have mentors that are at the institution that I'm at, but I also have mentors that are, in California, that are in Chicago, that are in different places, because I need people with an outside perspective that are still in the field, but can advise me kind of on the bigger picture. And I think that's just so important. You need people who've been through it, because it is extremely difficult. There is so much hierarchy in how, unfortunately, STEM fields are run. And so if you're an outsider, it's very hard for you to fit in. I think what I've also come to terms with is that my job is not to fit in. I think that putting that pressure on myself, oh, well, everyone acts this way and they look this way, so I need to conform. I think I've tried to free myself of that mindset entirely, because I'm here and I'm bringing something that's unique to the table. I have something to offer. I have something that's really going to make a difference in the world. So I should be the best version of myself and not feel like I have to be like anybody else. That being said, you still have to learn the language. You still have to learn the social skills. You have to find the way to network and you have to be able to turn things on and off, right? So I think there's learning about the surrounding that's around you. That honestly, minorities were so good at this, because to survive, we have to be able to switch things when we need to. We need to know, oh, I'm in this setting, so I need to approach things this way. I need to talk to this person this way. We understand all of those nuances that come with networking and being in different fields. I think the other thing too that I've tried to build for myself and create when I don't see along the way is finding those few other people that look like you that are around and building a community together. And that's something that I really tried to work on when I was in my medical school and graduate school training, where even if, there was one person in the physics department, there was one person in like computational, there was one person doing like cellular biology, and then we all get together and we just talk about what our experience is like, and having a safe space where you can just share just the ridiculous things that people put up with, the things that people said. One day someone told you, oh, your hair looks crazy today. And I was like, are you serious? I have my group of people I can talk to about that, right? You can vent to them when you gave a presentation and someone, gives you like a microaggression where they're like, wow, I'm so surprised that you spoke so eloquently about, this topic. I have my group of people. I can talk to them about it. So you're always having to deal with all of these different things. And I feel like the way that you get through it is by building community. And even if the community isn't near you, you can find it from different states, from different cities. There's even groups that I'm in where we nationally, as neuroscientists, get together on Zoom calls and we vent and we talk about stuff. Just finding a safe space, where you can just deal with all the frustration, I think is so important. And I think the people that, have really had the gift for being in STEM and have left, some of it is because they're isolated. They're not able to develop the community that they need. They're not able to find the mentorship that they need. And then, like I said, financially, there are obstacles that, minorities go through that are unique. And unfortunately, there's limited provisions for helping with those things. If we address those issues, there would be a lot more people, I think, in STEM, people of color.
Thank you. Appreciate, your perspective very much so. But, you mentioned how, people of color, Black, immigrants, we're able to switch on and off, right? We're able to, depending on where we are and the environment in which we find ourselves. So we tend to assimilate so that we can be accepted. But assimilation does come at a cost. And very often the cost is our mental health. This is Regine.
This is Michael.
Until next time.
This